In the last video we looked at marking out of bounds, so this is quite a good time to look at planting 3D fences. You're going to need fences a lot of the time to mark where the out of bounds is. So we add these fences using shapes again, so I'm just going to create a rectangle around this area for now, just to show you how to create a fence. Right, I've got it set to rough so I can't see it. That's a great start, so we'll just select it. Let's modify that to, let's put it as none. I can see that very clearly in the pink. Okay, so I've got a fence marked out around this area. So I go to planting, click on the fence icon. It's no good selecting fence in this part because as soon as we click plant fence, another menu will pop up and it will default back to this bridge. So I'm just going to go straight to plant fence, and it's not going to work because I haven't selected the shape. Select the shape, then click plant fence. Alright, select, while you're on the fence command, select the shape and then click plant fence. We get there. And we then have to select a fence post and a fence panel. Well, almost all of the fences, in fact I think all of them, have the posts with the panels anyway. So selecting fence post is a bit of a waste of time. It does add another effect by adding a post as well, but most of the posts don't really go with the fences in the APCD anyway, so I tend not to use the posts. So for now I'm just going to set that to 0. In fact, I'll leave it until I've selected my panel because I think the numbers will default back to as soon as I pick a new fence. So I'm going to select fence 3, and I'm now going to set the post height and the post width to 0, so it won't put any posts in at all. It will just put the fence in with a post height of 3, a panel height of 3, sorry, which is the post here, and a width of 10. Obviously you can set this to whatever you like, so we'll click OK. And if I put the camera where we can see this area, a fence has appeared. Now the panels have only got a post on one side, but because this is an enclosed area, where the last fence meets the first fence, it will join up, so it looks completely okay. If you're going to use just a line rather than a complete shape to plant your fence, which you can do, if I create another shape here, if I just right click rather than joining up to the other end, if I right click, it will create this pink and white dotted line, and I can actually plant a fence on that shape as well. So I'm going to select that in the planting. It's on fence, so I want to select that. I think it's selected. Plant fence. Okay, put the camera where we can see it, and you'll see I've created a fence along that line, and there's a post on that end, but on the other end it will be open because it's not connected to anything. So if you're going to use open line planting, you need to hide this either by using one of the posts in the game which never quite match what you're looking for, or plant something in the way, or butt it up against a wall, some way of hiding it. You know, just plant a 2D bush or something just in front of it. Nobody will notice it then. What you can do, if the ground's fairly flat, you can actually plant another fence and then rotate it round. So if you imagine, if I rotate this fence round on the Z-axis, if I get it right, I can move it and rotate it and match it in. It needs to go a bit further left on the XY. Sorry, it needs to go further right. So you'd need to try and line it up with the posts the other way, but it's almost impossible to get it right unless it's dead flat on the ground. And also, the fences are brighter on one side than the other, so it will still look a little bit odd. But it's better than no post at all. From a distance, it won't look too bad. So that's one way you can do it. I've not got it rotated right, as you can see from the overhead, but it's a lot of fiddling about. You could create your own custom post and texture it. That way you would get it perfectly blended in, but it's far easier to just hide it most of the time. Now when we're creating our out of bounds shapes, we can actually use those shapes to plant our fence along as well, rather than drawing another shape. If we've got an out of bounds area marked, we can actually just fence around that. Obviously, if we've extended it and it's not going round a field boundary or something, it's just extending into an odd place, what we're going to have to do is, once we create the fence all the way around, is then select the parts of the fence we don't want and just delete them. So if you imagine this was your out of bounds side on this area, what you'd need to do is go to select and select all the fence on the other three sides, like that, and just delete them, and that way again you just get the edge, but it will run exactly along the out of bounds line. Whereas if you try and draw another line in, it will never be exactly on the line, and sometimes the ball will land very close and it will be given out of bounds when it's inside the fence, and other times it will land the other side of the fence but it won't be given out of bounds because your line is slightly askew. So a good way is to use the actual out of bounds shape itself to plant your fence along. I'll just undo that. Now a couple of tips on creating different looks. I did mention it in another video, but I'll show it here. One thing you can do, if we select the whole fence, we can move it on the Z-axis, and we can actually just pull it underground, deselect, and we've created a one rail low fence, totally different looking fence to the one we had. Another one we can make, if I just undo that, if I move it the other way up into the air, if I now go back to the fence planting and plant the fence again, so we've now got one and another one above it. If I go back to move, this is still selected because it's the last thing we did. We can actually pull it back down again, and we can create a 3-bar or a 4-bar fence. Again, totally different looking fence, just created from one fence on top of another. If we wanted this lower bar to be flush with the ground, again we could select both the fences then. Whoops. be on move. So yeah, get it flush with the ground. And it's slightly different again. So with a bit of clever manipulation, you can create different looks with the very basic 3D you've got. And if you do add the posts as well, which I haven't done there, you'll create even more looks, and you can stretch them as well, which I discussed in 3D. If you stretch up the Z-axis, you can make these posts broader or narrower and create another look. So plenty to think about there.